So, Hans, why don't you tell us about the One Hotel's journey to date and working in the flagship, of course.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I joined the One Hotel brand about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. Actually, I joined as a consultant when we opened the One Hotel South Beach. That was the first hotel to open in March of 2015. And I was there for about 4 months and really enjoyed the brand and what it stands for. And I'll talk a little bit more about what it stands for. But after about 4 months, I was asked if I would be interested in actually formally joining the company and to become the general manager at the next hotel to open, which was the One Hotel Central Park, which is what I did. And we opened Central Park in August of 2015. We're located on the corner of 6th Avenue and 58th Street. It's one block of Central Park. And we have 229 guest rooms. And the One Hotel brand is, it's a fascinating brand. It's the brainchild of Barry Sterling, who actually also created the W brand many years ago. And he also created Starwood Hotels and Resorts. So knowing that, with that knowledge, I felt safe and secure that I would be joining a hotel brand that was going to grow and become, something interesting on the world stage, if you will. The One Hotel brand it's not just a hotel brand, but it's a cause. And as a hotelier, I started many years ago washing dishes and never went to hotel school or never went to any school, really, for that matter. I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm originally from Holland, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I grew up, and I had an opportunity to go to England for a year. And I did so, and I ended up in a small hotel in the north of England. Barely spoke English and started washing dishes, and then I was bussing tables and realized I really enjoyed it. And so I never went back to Holland, and I just kept on working in this business. And after a couple of years in a small hotel in the north of England, I moved to the US. I worked for the Hotel DuPont in Wilmington, Delaware. And after my visa ran out, I had to leave the US. And then I moved to the UK, back to the UK, and worked at the Savoy Hotel in London. There, I actually had the pleasure of looking after Kerry Packer, who used to stay at that hotel for about 3 or 4 months during the European summer. And they liked what I did and how I looked after his party. And I was asked to move to Australia to work for him. And I figured, well, how many times is someone going to ask me that? And so I packed my bags and I went to Australia and had the pleasure of living at the Park Hyatt for 6 months in Sydney, while I was looking after Al Dunlap, who worked for Kerry Packer at the time. So I was a private butler for about 6 months. And then I missed working for a hotel and working with a team of people. And so I joined Ritz-Carlton in Double Bay, which obviously is no longer Ritz-Carlton. It's now an InterContinental. Stayed there for about 3 years. And then I moved with Ritz-Carlton for 16 years all over the world. And after Ritz-Carlton, I joined Langham Hotels and Resorts, which is also well known here in Australia with 2 operating hotels. I was with them for about 7 years, and then I took a 14-month sabbatical, during which I did nothing but travel, and it was all about family, friends, and traveling the world. And then that's how I rolled into the One Hotel brand. And as a hotelier, what I find fascinating about the One Hotel brand is that it's not just a hotel brand, it's actually a cause. And again, started by Barry Sterling. He was inspired actually by his children who were doing projects for school that were reflective of the fact that we need to be aware of global warming, we need to be aware of sustainability and reusing materials and all of those good things in order to protect Mother Earth, because there is only one. And that's where the name of the brand actually came from. There's only one Earth, and all of us need to be looking after that Earth. And so the premise of the brand is that we hope to be a platform for change. And we try to inspire individuals when they stay at our hotels. And we also try to inspire other hotel brands to look at what we do and see what other brands can take from us. And as a brand, we certainly don't have an issue with that. We like to inspire others. So now I've been in Central Park for 2 years and enjoy it tremendously. As a hotelier, I find it fascinating that it's not just operating a hotel, but there's actually something bigger. And I think that's really meaningful for me personally. Whereas before, I never necessarily thought much about recycling and repurposing and sort of taking care of Mother Earth. It really just takes common sense to do so, because it's the right thing to do. And so other than operating a hotel, which I love doing, there's a bigger thing at work here. And inspiring our guests to do what's right and inspiring our team members at the hotel feels great. And even myself, I've changed habits since I've been with the company.
Now, right across the hotel, from the design perspective right through to the F&B, you really have had sustainability there as a forefront. So on the design perspective, what were some of the initiatives that went into it to ensure it was going to be sustainable? And what are some of your favourite things in the hotel as well? I know one of mine's the reclaimed basketball court that's in your gym.
Yeah, the gym floor is actually a reused basketball court from a college in New York somewhere. And the floor looks perfectly fine. It's got random black lines, of course, from the old court. But it's a perfectly fine-looking floor. And so that really is the theme when we design hotels. We like to use a lot of raw materials. We like to work with artisans that are local. And any time that we design a hotel, for example, when you walk into the 1 Hotel South Beach, it really is a reflection of the dunes and the grasses and the ocean and the sun, with a lot of light colors, very spacious. It really makes you feel, it really creates a sense of place. And we try to bring in nature. We try to bring nature into the hotel. So there's quite a seamless sort of transition from being inside to going outside and vice versa. The same you'll find in our hotel in Brooklyn Bridge. In Brooklyn, there's a park in front of the hotel. There's the Brooklyn Bridge, and there's a Brooklyn Bridge Park right in front of the hotel. And when we designed the hotel, actually, we worked with with the park designer, if you will, the landscaping company that designed the park. We actually wanted to team up with those individuals to ensure that when we built the hotel, we would be consistent with what was already there. So we like to sort of seamlessly slip into the existing environment. And for Central Park, it's all about Central Park. When you walk into the hotel, and the first thing that's really striking, there's a couple of things that are really striking, is the ivy wall outside the hotel, which really brings in Central Park into the sort of concrete jungle of Manhattan, if you will. And then the second thing you'll see is we have these massive 15 feet tall doors, and they're inlaid with branches and pieces of wood from upstate New York. And it's all created by a local artisan in Long Island. And they're just stunning. The doors are stunning. They're just a beautiful piece of art themselves. And so as you enter the hotel, then you see there's a part of the lobby is reclaimed wood from old barns in upstate New York. There's a lot of wood use in the guest rooms. You might be familiar with the typical water towers in New York City. A lot of the backdrop in the guest rooms are wood from those water towers. So there's a few things that we do when we open our hotels. We like to team up with local designers, actually. And they don't necessarily need to be hotel designers. What we like to do is, look at designers that obviously are very talented and what have you, but we immerse them into our brand, and then we allow for them to translate our brand into how they see the hotel. And then we have our own vice president of design and senior vice president of design, and they sort of, ensure that what the local design team came up with is in line with our brand.
So you've got for two people from a very small hotel group in the design division, it's actually quite significant for a hotel company of your size.
Yeah.
So what are Barry's visions for the company? How many One Hotels do you think he wants?
Last week we celebrated Earth Day last week, well, a couple of weeks ago now, and he did a presentation at our hotel in Brooklyn, and that same question was asked, and he foresees it will grow bigger than the W brand.
Okay.
So that's very exciting. We're looking at several locations around the world, and I know there's also a desire to be here in Australia, which will be fascinating. I think the Australians will be very interested in the brand.
So with that kind of expansion, and when you look at the design again, I mean, how do you guys go about? How do you choose the artists to work with, the designers to work with in each of those new locations?
Well, we look at what is around, if you will. For example, the main design team that worked on Central Park is a company called Avrico. And Avrico is mostly known for restaurant design. We were the first hotel that they did. And so they team up then with our senior vice president of design, and they collaborate and created what we now know as the One Hotel Central Park.
What was the general brief of the design for the hotel, if you could summarize it in a couple of sentences?
Really, it's the common design theme in all of our hotels is really to bring the outside in and celebrate nature. That is really, really large. And so then we sort of let them do their thing. And then we sort of looked at, okay, is this really in line with our vision and what we want to do? And the fascinating thing is also how involved Barry Sternlicht is with the design. Obviously, he's the CEO of Starwood Capital, and he manages $52 billion worth of investments all over the world. And so knowing his very busy schedule, I'm surprised at how much he's involved in the design of each hotel. And even post-opening, he'll come and make comments on certain things in the hotel and recognizes when something is not quite how he envisioned it. And it's amazing, it's fascinating how smart he is in regards to design.
Because your lobby is like walking into a greenhouse. I mean, you have plants everywhere, hanging from the ceilings, on the grounds. You get up into the floors of the hotel, and you've got living walls where the numbers are on each of the rooms. Yeah. What kind of upkeep do you have to do to make it look effectively brand new and fresh the entire time?
It's challenging, but I think once I commit to a brand and I know it's the right thing, you find ways. I think we're all capable of more than we think of, and so we're able to do it. Yes, the lobbies, we have thousands of plants on the inside of the hotel. Sometimes people walk into the lobby and they ask themselves, well, is it just your lobby? Because some hotels you walk into the lobby and it's fantastic, and then you go to the floors and it's a different story. But the floors in the guest rooms are just as fantastic as the lobby. So guests are always interested in knowing that. But it's actually housekeeping that looks after all the plants. We've also teamed up with a local plant company, if you will. They're located in Brooklyn. And they come once a week and they look at all of the plants in the hotel, in the public areas particularly. They water, they replace, they maintain, they look after. And, we learned through it too. We had all these staghorns. When we opened the hotel, we had all these staghorns in all of the bathrooms, in the guest rooms. They looked fantastic, but it didn't work. And you learn these things. We're a new brand, and that's another beautiful thing is that, we learn as we go because we're doing things that no other brand does. And that's a journey. And I think as long as you recognize that not everything is going to work the way you envision it, you'll be fine. So the staghorns didn't work. So I ended up replacing them with something that does work without compromising the brand. And that's, I think, is a bit of a challenge because it's easy to do. When you have such a specific brand, you kind of often naturally look for, well, what's easier or what's quicker, what's less expensive. But we don't really want to go there because if we do that, then very quickly we'll turn into just another hotel brand.
No, we don't have any photos on screen because it's way too distracting to have them on while you're talking because it'll be distracting everybody in the audience. But you're so good at describing things, Hans. I'm thinking, I want you to describe your penthouse. This is the most unique penthouse I think I've ever seen in a hotel, definitely in New York.
Thank you. We call it the Greenhouse Suite, and yeah, I'm very, very proud of it. How to describe it? It's often when people come into it, it's a series of rooms actually. We have the guest bedroom, we have a media room, and we have a dining room, then we have a living room, and then we have the master bedroom. And a lot of people, when they see it, they describe it more as an apartment, a private apartment, and it's high above the city. It's on the 18th floor, and it overlooks Central Park. It really is quite stunning. And, you know, the living room, and I've never seen this, living room doesn't have a TV, which I think is fantastic. The art really is outside of the window. We have Central Park. So that's really where we want to have people look. And there's all these different textures and pieces of furniture and different woods on the floors. There's a huge Japanese soaking tub, which is quite unique.
Well, each room's like a different room, though. It's not like they've got different woods in there, different chandeliers in there. And the lighting in the bathroom with all the lights hanging on the ceiling is incredible.
Yeah, it's and the floor is made out of little pebbles. It's almost like one of the bathrooms looks like an outhouse. It's you know, wood paneling, and it's got dried flowers hanging from the ceiling, like maybe about 125 little bouquets of dried flowers. So you see all these things. It's very it really evokes a lot of sort of emotions, if you will, when you're up there.
So how does someone stay in that room and then go and try and stay in a normal room afterwards? It's going to be a bit of a challenge.
I do it in the other way, regular room and then the Greenhouse Suite.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you, I've seen a lot of suites throughout my career in many different parts of the world. It's really special, yeah. And if anyone ever comes to New York City, I'll be at the hotel, and I'd love to show you.
It's one of those hotels that I'd walked past before and been into the lobby of, but like you said, the design does carry right through the building. It's not just an impressive lobby or restaurant. I mean, you get to each floor, and each floor is a little bit different too, with the materials that you've used on the walls and whatnot. I mean, tell us about this project. I mean, this is an old facade, but it's effectively a new build hotel behind it. And how long did that process take?
So interestingly enough, the building was built as a hotel in the 1920s. Then it was turned into an office building in the 60s, and then Starwood Capital purchased it about 6 years ago now. And it was quite a long project. And like you said, the facade is really the only thing that was kept standing. The inside is all new, if you will. And it has, you know, like on the second floor where we have our meeting space, when we sort of stripped the building, we found this sort of concrete cement floor. And we ended up not doing anything to the floor. And it doesn't look perfect. It has, you know, different colors and things that look repaired and all of that. And there's old brick that was exposed, and we kept it like that. And you know, and when you look at nature and the imperfections of nature, we've really kept the imperfections within the hotel as well. And like you said, on all the floors we have you know, moss panels with air plants, which we need to look after, and the same in all the guest rooms. And yes, it's thorough. You know, and the whole sustainability thing, I think that's something that we don't necessarily push onto our guests, but it's there's gentle reminders everywhere in the hotel. When you take a shower at the hotel, there's a little hourglass in the shower. So you can turn it around and it gives you 5 minutes. And so the whole idea behind it is to remind ourselves of water conservation. You know, people sometimes tend to take, you know, 10, 15-minute showers, and, you know, and there's just, you know, we just don't have enough water to do that. So, you know, and there's other things, like we have no paper in the guest rooms. There's no compendiums, there's no in-room dining menus. Everything is on a little tablet, much like your cell phone. And the tablet can be used to turn the lights on, or call for the bellman, or call for housekeeping, or you know, you name it. And you can text the front desk and what have you. So it's all paperless. We do have a little blackboard with a sort of a pen. So now we see regular guests leaving messages for housekeeping, and housekeeping welcoming the guest back, and it's really quite
Well,
special.
when you draw a mural, they come through and wipe it off the next morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't get to stay. You got to take a photo of it. But it's if you look at sort of with your hotel and having this real benchmark. I mean, I've seen the Miami hotel as well, and that's quite different to this one. That was a hotel that was obviously under a different brand. You guys came in. Is Central Park going to be the global benchmark for the brand as you see it?
Well, I would say really it's Brooklyn Bridge, as much as I would like my hotel to be the benchmark. I think it's Brooklyn Bridge because Brooklyn Bridge so far is the only new build. It's one hotel from the ground up. Like you said, South Beach was existing, Central Park was existing, and Brooklyn Bridge is the first one that is being built from the ground up, or was built from the ground up. We're now building in Cabo, in Mexico, in Sanya, China. They're also from the ground up, but we would like to see Brooklyn as sort of the benchmark. All of the hotels are going to be a reflection of where they are, and we're going to use local artists and artisans to create those hotels. You mentioned mural earlier. It's interesting. In my hotel, there's no artwork in frames. There's nothing in frames. If we do have artwork, it's painted on the walls. Few walls are covered in wallpaper. It's all. We like to use the raw materials and the sort of character of the building needs to come through, and the character of where the hotel itself is, as opposed to dressing everything up.
Yeah, even your fire escape has a beautiful painting going down the inside of it. Before we do obviously go to a break, would anyone like to ask Hans a question?
Jeff Robinson. I'm the global sustainability lead for an engineering company, and I'm really inspired by what you were saying. And I was wondering how it's taken off. How the guests who come, are they coming because it's a really cool place from a design point of view, or are they coming because they want to make a statement, or is it a bit of both?
It's a bit of everything. I have to admit the location of the hotel is killer location. But interestingly enough, last year we did some research, and we sent out a questionnaire to 50,000 of our guests. And 47% of those guests that stayed with us felt that they were inspired by the message that we are hoping to convey to our guests. And they said that they were either inspired by the design or by the whole sustainability concept, and they started to recycle at home and really start to think about everything that we use in our daily life, because we tend to buy and use and throw out and then buy another one. Even a silly example, I stopped buying orange juice in large plastic containers because you can get the very same orange juice in a carton container. But knowing that plastic will take approximately 500 years to decompose completely, why would I use plastic? I refuse. Sometimes you go to a CVS or some place to buy batteries, and they give you, for a little pack of 4 batteries, they give you a big plastic bag. I refuse. So I think, and I'm not the only one. There's all these employees in the hotel that are inspired, because this is a daily topic. You can't just. This is not just lipstick and rouge, if you will. This is through and through. It's a culture. It's becoming a culture, and people really believe in it and all of that. So yeah, I do believe that this is something that people find interesting. Did that answer your question, Keith? Yeah.
From a sustainability point of view, I found it fascinating. You said a new build was actually the benchmark, because that seems to me the non-sustainable way to go, because you're talking about reusing materials, reusing all these ideas, but now you're talking about brand new steel and concrete. How do you marry that with the idea that you're saying sustainability? Because I think your property sounds like it actually is more sustainable.
Right.
So
Great question.
How do you do that?
No, it's great. But you have to keep in mind there's no such thing as 100% sustainable. It doesn't exist. No one can do that. There might be a handful of people that truly live sustainable. But when you look at what was used to build that building, and what systems were placed in there, we don't. The heating system is such that if there's heat generated, for example, say in the kitchen, that heat, rather than spewing it out of the building, it's redirected, it's cleaned, if you will, and it's used to heat other areas in the hotel. So it's from that aspect, it's a very smart building. You might say, the ivy on the outside of the building, well, that's not very, because you use a lot of water. Well, it only waters. It actually, each pot of ivy, we measure how moist the soil is in it. And it will only water if it needs water. And obviously, it rains a fair amount. So it really is quite, and then there's different zones too, because the upper zone might catch more of the rain than the lower zone, et cetera. So there is a lot of thought. And by trade, I'm not a designer, I'm not an engineer, so forgive me, please. But a lot of the materials that were used to build Brooklyn Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge Hotel, were used in a thoughtful manner and often reused and repurposed. For example, if you go to like a buffet setup for a big event in the hotel, you'll see there's huge pieces of leftover wood from the construction that are still being used as props for the buffet. To put the dishes with the food on, et cetera, or what have you. So there is a lot of thought put into it, and someone else could answer that question more specific than I can, because I operate the hotels, if you will, and I don't necessarily build it. By having been with this company for 2 years now, I feel that there is a very thorough and very genuine desire to do what's right.
Is that a good answer, Paul? You got it? I've got one more, Timo.
There's obviously a lot of thought given towards ecological sustainability, but we're looking at other sustainability, such as social sustainability, for example, cultural sustainability. Maybe not in South Region, maybe not in Central Park, but Brooklyn, maybe, again, for example, there. Are there considerations in those areas as well?
So there's a lot of, when we interview new team members, potential new team members, we ask them what they do at home in regards to sustainability or to recycling or what have you. And another question is, do you do any volunteer work? So just 3 weeks ago, I was digging in the dirt in one of the parks in Harlem, in New York City, cleaning up after the winter, and was planting, and I do that with my team. And then we had another event about 2 weeks ago, and I didn't go, I couldn't. But yeah, we do a lot of volunteering, a lot of programs for, the neighborhood, if you will. I get a large amount of requests for, exchanges for complimentary nights or what have you. And I used to sort of not care who it was for. I just looked at the cause. But now I really look, if the cause is in line with our ethos, if the cause is, if it has anything to do with sustainability or being a better citizen of the world, or if it's for a local charity, absolutely, then we're interested. But, there are so many good causes in the world that, it would be endless. But I've learned to become a little bit more, targeted in what we do for who. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, social consciousness going on within the company. And that's another, as you mature as an individual, your priorities in life shift. And I think at this stage in life, I look for those priorities which are different now than they were, some time ago. And so personally, that's important to me as well, to contribute in that aspect from a social aspect. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you to Hans for flying in from New York to be with us today. If we could give him a round of applause.
Thank you.